I'm Dana K. White, and today I am going to tell you a decluttering story about how a container helped me make some really, really hard decluttering decisions that I had put off for a very long time. So I have casually mentioned over the last few years that there were still some boxes in our garage from when we moved in November of 2021, which I'm now realizing is like 4 years ago, but whatever. And those were the last boxes that weren't marked as anything really, I don't think. And that I knew there was some stuff in it. I think they were things that people who were helping us just shoved things in from like random corners that I really don't know. But they were daunting to me. And so I mentioned recently that we hired a junk hauler to come and pick up a big desk and some other big things. And so I was determined to get as much stuff out with that junk hauling as I possibly could. And I was determined to get the garage finally done. And I had worked and I had worked. And I had gotten to the point where I was like, these last things, I am down to the wire. Like I had it scheduled and this was the last time I could work on it. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I said, you know what? I've got to get this done. And so I'm going to get a container. And so I looked at the space where I could put a container. I wasn't going to be happy about it, right? But I could put a container for these random things and it would not take up space that we needed for other things. So I decided the size of the container according to that, and I got the biggest container that I could get. And I said, I am going to only keep out of these 4, 5, 6 boxes, I'm not sure, here's the stack, what I can fit in this container. And so I started. And I will tell you that the vast majority of what was in those boxes was trash. I mean, sorry, it's August when I'm recording this. There were like study materials. There were, things like papers that were, sometimes you stress over, should I keep that paper? Should I not? But these were from like our apartment when we got married, 25 years ago, 26 years ago. I mean, like stuff like that. And so there was so much trash. So here's a picture of the container after I'd been working for about, I don't honestly remember, but about an hour. This is what was in the container and this was what was in the trash. But don't worry, I kept filling the container because there were that many things. I ended up filling the container all the way. Now here's the thing I'm going to tell you. I completely understand when well-meaning helpers will tell you, you haven't looked in those boxes, you haven't thought of anything that would be in those boxes in the last 4 years, just throw them out. I completely understand someone telling me to do that, or someone telling you to do that, but I am here to represent the people who are like, I just can't do that. I just can't. There's going to be stuff in there. So here are some of the things that I did find as I cleaned out those boxes, putting anything that I was keeping in the container. Okay. So here are a couple of the things that I found. You're going to love some of these. There's me in I think it was probably right around 1990. Look at that hair. Look at my hair. Here is a super cute little invitation to Reedy Roo's 3rd birthday party. To Reed's 3rd birthday party. I'm not sure if he's going to let me say Reedy Roo or not. We'll see. Like, hello. I'm glad I didn't just not go through that. There's Reed in his little lion costume. Yeah. There were quite a few videotapes that were randomly stuck in there, and they may not even be worth it anymore. I was not, meaning they could be damaged at this point, but I was in a hurry. But the container allowed me to go through those boxes quickly and just say, container worthy, trash, container worthy, trash, container worthy, trash. Now I keep saying the word container. If this is the first video you have watched of mine, go watch this video about the container concept. The container concept is this. I used to think containers were for putting things in. Actually, they are meant to serve as limits, okay? It changed everything when I viewed containers as limits, because here's the thing. When I used to think of containers as just depositories for stuff, right? In that same situation, I would have kept the boxes, or if I wanted to get nicer containers, I would have just taken the stuff straight out of the boxes and dumped it into the container. We didn't need the vast majority of the stuff that was in those boxes. So knowing that the container is the limit to how much I can keep, and knowing that that container is going to fit nicely in the space that I have for that container, that's how I determine the size of it, it changed everything for me. I wasn't just, okay, now I was putting stuff in the container. Do I wish I had a better solution? I do. But for the situation that I was in, that's what I chose to do, right or wrong. And because I knew that the container was limited, then it just naturally sorted out what deserved space in the limited space of the container and what did not deserve space. And let me just tell you, this was one of those examples of the momentum of trash. Things that at the beginning, I was like, I don't know. And I haven't looked in here for 4 years. If it might be trash, I'm just going to decide it's trash. And the more I trashed and the more I trashed, the more I started to be like, I think the old me, even a year ago, might have kept this trash. And I talked to my husband. I was like, hey, I threw away some stuff that I once upon a time would never have thrown away. And he was like, I don't care, right? Like we were at this point where we had this deadline and we had to get this done. The container itself is the thing that made it easier for me to make those decisions. Because if I tell myself, Dana, you haven't looked in there in 4 years, just get rid of all of it. I know there's important stuff in there. And even though I might try to convince myself, Dana, just throw it in the trash. What is the big deal? I wouldn't do it. And then I would be stuck with the boxes and nothing happening, right? And also still having no idea what's in there, but also still being overwhelmed and intimidated by the idea of that. So having this defined space that I put things in allowed me to go through it, because I knew that this was not going to just be me saying everything in there is gone forever, because no, I hadn't thought about that little picture of Reed for his 3rd birthday party, but I would think of it at some point, right? And even if I didn't, I'm glad I have it. It's something I want to have. It was a lot of work. Yes, I wore gloves because those boxes had been in the garage for almost 4 years, and I was scared what I might find in them. I wore a mask to not breathe in the dust, because that is another one of my big reasons that I hate decluttering in situations like that. It's because I end up getting sick from breathing in the dust. So the gloves, the mask, those were not things of me being scared. Those were things of me saying, this is what I have to do to actually make myself do this. Giving myself a container where I can put the things that do matter to me in there, that is what I have to do to be able to go through these boxes. And now I know exactly where that stuff is. I have a general category of things that I would say, yes, I would look in that spot, and it's nice and protected in a plastic tub now. So that's my story of using a container to help me declutter and how it makes decluttering so much easier. It is rarely a situation where I fill a container and then I have to make hard decisions. Out of those 4 or 5 boxes, I did fill the container. I did get kind of nervous that I was going to get to the point where I was going to have to, go back through it and make hard decisions. But even in the end, it just made me be even more ruthless and more ruthless, because I saw the containers getting full. If there's any question whatsoever of whether this thing should go in the trash, it's going to go in the trash because the container is pretty much full at this point. All right. That's just my little story. I hope it was helpful. I will talk to y'all next week. Bye.